I wanted to make a more general point about Joe Biden. It's been a couple of months now that he's technically been in the race, but people were assuming he would be in even before. And when you would throw his name in a poll, everybody knows who he is, and so he'd do well, especially in a very diverse field. And we've been saying the whole time that does not mean he's inevitably going to be the candidate, and it certainly doesn't mean that he's the best candidate to take on Donald Trump. And we kept saying he is not the campaigner that people seem to believe that he is. The last two times he ran for president, he was a relatively weak debater. He would make constant own goals for no reason. And we have been seeing that over and over with him. That segregationist issue, that was his choice to bring that up again. We'd already talked about the busing and all of that, but that was totally an unnecessary fumble for Joe Biden. But he did it, and today at the debate, we mentioned this briefly, Olivia Nuzzi of I think New York Magazine says a source close to the Biden campaign tells me that his staff is freaking out about his poor performance tonight. According to Biden's staff, he isn't listening to his debate prep and he's, quote, set in his ways, the source close to the campaign tells me. I have a feeling he's been that way for a long time, and you don't get less set in your ways as you near 80. And so this is what we've been saying would happen, and now it's playing out on the debate stage.
You know, but that, John, that goes towards his arrogance. So, you know, he's got old ideas, and he's set in the 1990s, that nonsense bipartisanship, the kind of bipartisanship that totally screws over the Democratic Party rather than helping the Democratic Party. And when his staffers say, hey, you've got to be ready for the new kind of politics and you've got to have decent answers. But his arrogance goes to, no, I know what I'm doing. This is how I've gotten deals my whole life. So I'm not going to listen to you, and I'm just going to say what I've always said. But Joe, you never won any presidential elections. You got clowned out of the last two. So, you know, he's got this unearned confidence just because Obama picked him out of a hat. It's not like he was doing well in that. Obama had actually kicked his ass. And so had Hillary Clinton, and so had almost everybody else in that race.
One thing that was kind of interesting that probably hurt Biden tonight is that Biden actually did pretty well in the debates in the 2008 election. He had the white guy screaming from the corner seat, the John Delaney Memorial white guy screaming from the corner seat, and he would sort of parachute in and say little things. The famous one is he said, Rudy Giuliani, this is all he says, a noun, a verb, and 9/11.
That's true, yeah.
He was fine in those, but there's a different dynamic when you're in the center of the stage and you're the front runner and everyone's gunning for you. You cannot just sort of pop off with a comment here, a comment there, and get away with it. And it was a very different dynamic, and he did not seem prepared for it.
Yeah, and that seems to be what's screaming from his staff is that he really does think, it looks like that he's leading in the polls. It's not going to change. He doesn't need to take this seriously. That's why he's not doing media events very much. He's not going to
He's running the William McKinley campaign, like from 1900, where everyone comes to your front porch.
Yeah, now that does not mean, by the way, that Bernie's necessarily going to beat him. There's still 1 million people in this race, and Kamala Harris would love to cut his hamstrings and take his spot in the polls, certainly. But if I was Biden, I would be terrified after tonight. If I were his staff, I would be terrified that he's going to learn slowly, if at all, and might not be able to adapt in time for future debates.
Let me say two last things here. One is that if your staffers are also throwing you under the bus in the middle of a debate after you got skull crushed, that is a terrible sign. That means your staff is in total disarray. There's complete dissension, and they don't even believe in you. And they're trying to protect their own ass instead of worrying about putting you in the best light. That might be an even worse sign than what Kamala Harris and the rest did to him tonight. So really bad news for Biden. He all of a sudden goes from leader to totally reeling at this point. And then, you know, overall, when you look at these two nights of debates, there's a couple of people who wind up standing out. And it's Elizabeth Warren at the top of that list, Kamala Harris, and Bernie Sanders. So if you're that three, you got to be thrilled. I mean, Kamala Harris is trying to play catch up. She's in 5th place. She's in single digits. She has to feel terrific about how she did tonight. But Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are in 2nd and 3rd place. And now with Biden in an epic collapse, progressives have to be feeling amazing because it looks like we're in a position to potentially have the top 2 candidates in the race. Wow, who would have thought that was possible?
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.